All right, ladies and gentlemen, how goes it this evening? Uh, if you can hear my voice or see my face on YouTube, you know it can mean only one thing. It is time once again for the worst 120 minutes or so in all of sports. That's right. It is time for the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. I am Mike, and I am joined as I am every week by my faithful partner in all things podcasting, producer Stead. How goes it, my friend?
Going good, especially with the fact that the weather broke and it's been nice and cool out. We're getting lows in the 50s in some places, low 60s, which reminds me of the fact that fall is coming. So the dog days of lack of interesting sports in the summer are over, unless you're a track fan. But then we have all of the fall sports coming. We've already got the Premier League started, plus the other European leagues. Preseason football. I'm actually gladly I'll watch preseason American football as well. So it's all good. And this heat is hopefully going to break. And we won't have too many more 90-degree days. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, I think it barely got above. I don't even think it got to 80 today.
No, it did not today. Absolutely. Nope.
I don't think it got to 80 today, and certainly it barely got above that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen some waking up this morning in the morning, and it's been, it's almost been, you have to put on pants, like it's not sweltering at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. So yeah, that's lovely. And I think there were some grumblings about the first weekend of the Premier League that it was kind of boring. Wasn't boring this weekend, I can tell you
that. No. And we got a packed show this week. We're going to start by talking with Chelsea Mike Shoestack and hopefully Los about what was probably one of the more entertaining games of the week in the Chelsea Spurs match from yesterday that had everything from hair pulling to managers' fights to you name late Harry Kane goals, everything you could possibly ask. Arsenal getting off to a solid start. Jesus looking like he can lead a line and be a main striker at someplace not named Manchester City. At the other end of the table, Manchester United in 20th position and looking pretty bad, looking very much like the 20th best team, maybe even the 21st best team in the Premier League after a limp 4-0 defeat away at Brentford. We're going to talk to our good friend Uncle Leo, who has spent a number of years, not a number of years, but a number of decades covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and has some insight into the inner workings of the minds of the Glazers that not a lot of us do. I want to get his thoughts on how he thinks that the Glazer family is going to handle this, as things just go from bad to worse at Manchester United now. And their odds to get relegated are actually probably are double what they are to make Europe this year instead. Apparently, according to 538, they have about a 10% chance of getting relegated, but a less than 3% chance of making the Champions League. And based on what I saw, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Everybody poo-pooed me and said, oh, this is a hot take. I actually think that if they continue to play like this, that there's a better than average chance that we could see something we never thought was possible. And that's Manchester United getting relegated. Because if you change the crest and the names on the back of the shirt and you just go based on performance, numbers, pure statistics, they look like a team that should get relegated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you said something because you're also going to hear the comparisons with Arsenal last year, how they went 0-3, 0 goals, bottom of the table after three fixtures. But you pointed out, and I think your assessment was very correct, where a while ago was you were saying that, yeah, Arsenal may be going through this now, but you can see that their trajectory is up. You have the youngest team. You clearly have contracts. You're going to be unloading, bringing in new talent. It's going to even out eventually, where you felt like Manchester United was literally on their way down. And that was really spot on, because you're looking at a club that does not have that we got unlucky and we had to play two of the three best teams in the league, or two of the top 6 teams in the league in our first 3 games, things like that. So it's a bit disturbing, because I think the faith in the manager just seems to be so low, whereas in Arsenal situation, that wasn't really the case. So we'll see what this turns into. I mean, you would expect them to rebound at some point, but they're still 15 days in the transfer market. So maybe they do something there, but it is a little concerning to see, because there really is, who are the players that are waiting in your pipeline that everybody's excited to see? Who's your ESR and Bukayo Saka? Who are they for Manchester United? And, I don't know.
I don't think that they exist. I don't think faith in a manager is necessarily low. I think that people.
I was listening to Grumpy Pundits on Sirius this morning, and they kept saying that. And I had a similar kind of like, well, it's kind of early to say that, but yeah, I just threw that in there because I heard Tommy Smith say it.
I think that it's easy to say, well, nobody has faith in Erik ten Hag. And I think Erik ten Hag is left wondering, like, I just really do not know what to do at this point with these players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the mentality, I think that the aura, I think that the atmosphere, I think the locker room, I think everything is so incredibly toxic right now that, the whole entire squad doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
They just all have the yips, and you can't beat it out of them.
Mm-hmm.
You can give them the game plan, you can train them, you can give them the tactics, you can tell them, you can direct them, you can do everything that you want to do. And if the players don't execute, what can you do as the manager?
What can you do? Yeah.
You can call them back in and make them run. You can bench starters, you can drag players off. But if the players don't execute, what can you do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he does not have players that are capable of executing right now. And that's where I said, if you look at the team, they don't have the fight, they don't have the attitude, they don't have the drive necessary for this type of fight that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about Arsenal last year playing 3 of the top 6 teams, and then going forward, they had Mikel Arteta, they had young guys. They were okay. We took our lumps, but we're going to move forward. I think with the end of last season, with this season, with everything, and there being so little change, despite the change in manager, what you haven't changed is necessarily the players. You haven't changed the captain. There's some really important players on the team that have not changed yet. That what you're seeing is this is what this collection of players are.
Mm-hmm.
And since you can't transfer the whole entire lot of them out and bring in 40 some odd new players in 15 days, you're going to have to deal with what you get. And what you get may actually be a team that is going to be in and around the relegation scrap for the majority of the year. Because look, if you can't figure out a way to play against Brentford, and you can't figure out a way to play against Brighton, what do you expect to do when you have Liverpool and Sunderland or Southampton coming up, who are your 2 games to break out the end of the season? Do you really think that if there was going to be this great change in attitude and they were going to dig down and find the intestinal fortitude to come out and put in a performance worthy of Manchester United and Old Trafford, they'd have done it by now? The fact of the matter is, if they had it, they'd have done it.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have done it last week. They'd have done it against Brighton. The fact of the matter is that they just don't have it, and that's what we're dealing with. But let's turn our attention to Sunday's game and welcome in our good friend Los and Chelsea Mike to talk about the kerfuffle, the brouhaha, whatever you want to term it, that was this derby in between Chelsea and
Finish putting the
put him up. Yeah, like I mean, we had a manager fight. There was some hair pulling. There was a late Harry Kane goal. Los, you have to believe, like this game had it all.
Well, everything except the girl running on the field, advertisingvitality.com.
Yes.
But yeah, what a game. I gotta say, for neutrals, you had a hell of a match. And I'll be honest, as a Spurs fan, the comeback at the end, unlikely, but it happened. And it is what it is. But there were some things that happened during the game that probably should have gone differently. And I'm sure Chelsea Mike's going to tell us just how bad that was. just a little bit. Just a little bit.
All right, Mike, here's your chance to complain about what you saw on Sunday.
I mean, Anthony Taylor probably should have just picked the ball up and put it right in the net for Tottenham. I mean, it was that flagrant. Absolutely unbelievable refereeing. Some of the worst you've ever seen. And it's, okay, maybe you miss a call, maybe you miss a hair getting pulled, but that's what VAR is for, right? What is VAR for? What do they do? I mean, all they are is pretty much a line drawing system that makes really good forward play offside. And I guess that's it. They're just a geometry class that, likes to mess around with lines. Horrible.
I wish it was a geometry class. My geometry class ain't nothing like that.
I mean, okay, so
neither was mine.
The hair pulling, it did seem a little bit obvious and perhaps a little blatant.
Literally,
conduct. Period. It's violent
the
conduct.
line of the camera when they were showing the replay that VAR looked at went right through Anthony Taylor. He was staring straight at it. He saw it.
And that's where I have the issue with that. That is a bit of a one, like you said, Los, by the letter of the law, that's violent conduct. I don't understand how Anthony Taylor looking at that, VAR looking at that, VAR looking at Anthony Taylor looking at it and saying, okay, we're not going to say that this is a foul at all. We're not going to even suggest that he go back over and look at it. I don't know what even if you could say, oh, it wasn't intentional, still that's a foul. I don't know, man. Help me out with this.
Oh, that was intentional. There's no doubt. I mean, it goes back to earlier in the match when Cucurella stepped on him and left a little mark on his leg. So that's where it started. And truth be told, they looked at that possibly for sanctions, but they found nothing because he's not looking to step on the guy. It's normal. It's just the way his leg was moving. He's looking away and stepped on him. So I guess they deemed it as unintentional. But Romero has a way of remembering things like that. And so he remembered late in the game, and the referee let it go. It's one of the things. If the referee isn't going to call it, then he isn't going to call it. That's just the way it is. And you just got to, you play with it as it is. And
I mean, he got away with it because he knew that Anthony Taylor wasn't going to call. Anthony Taylor is a let it go guy. And when it gets to the end of the game, it's like anything goes except, unless you wear a blue shirt. It's not the first time. It's not the first time.
I had no idea that Anthony Taylor was a Frozen fan. Was he let it go?
It's funny. I blame this though. A couple things. It was poor. Let me say this. Good on Spurs for continuing to fight. Good on Spurs because even with the second goal, they just the belief was there. I found it quite humorous though that I forgot the player's name, but the way on the foul on Havertz where he stopped playing. He's like, okay, that's clearly a foul. And then he kind of grabbed the ball and was like, oh, no whistle. Okay, I guess I'll pass the ball. And then the hair pull, Romero's not getting any kind of post punishment. I think you put no blame on Romero though. I mean, he's just playing. And did he do something wrong? Yeah. And I think, was he expecting to get called for it? Yeah, I think he was. And they just happened to not get called. But the Anthony Taylor situation is really the most mind-boggling thing. I can't recall seeing a game that had 2 pretty clear fouls that weren't called, regardless of the fact that they led to goals. Because even if those didn't lead to goals, those are just very, very blatantly clear fouls. And that's where I really have an issue with it, not so much to the game. I mean, shoot, you couldn't have given a better result for me for that game. That was the perfect result for me as far as I'm concerned. And it was a very entertaining game. But I really have a problem with the lack of officiating. I know that the Premier League has said we want to let the games go a little more and not call ticky-tack penalties, but that wasn't an N'Golo Kante tackle on Kevin De Bruyne where he hit all ball. I mean, it wasn't even close. And so the level of officiating is poor, just flat out. I'm going to kind of quote, Will. These referees, they're just not very good. And is it because of the nature of refereeing in where it's one guy having to watch that many players, but you're following the ball for the most part and you keep your line of sight, but the refereeing is just flat out poor. And I wonder if the referees, because of the constant shifts in what is legal and what isn't in their little gray area shifts, maybe that's making this more difficult. And I'm just saying that to give the referees some level of respect, but it's really sad. It's really sad to see just flat out blatant poor refereeing week in and week out.
Well, can we talk about their first goal and what you were talking about there, Stead, that shifting line of what is and what isn't. Mm-hmm. So in the first goal, of course,
he pointed at the ball too. I was like, how? He pointed. He was like, "We got the ball." Like no, he didn't.
It was clear to see on the replay that he got absolutely zero ball
right
at all,
and he knew it. He knew it.
I know.
The assistant didn't see it, but the player
he did.
knew it.
He
was like, oh, I get it. I got to stop him though. And that's not even a bad foul.
So that was, I would agree, in a different phase of a game that it couldn't come back even if they reviewed it. Mm-hmm. But in the actual goal itself, when Jorginho was bouncing the ball around in the box for reasons that are unexplainable, the ball bounced up and it hit Son in the hand. Mm-hmm. The ball hitting the hand, even if it's not a foul, according to the rules, because Chelsea have lost goals like this, if the ball hits a hand, it doesn't matter. The goal doesn't count. And Richarlison was not only clearly offside, but if he's not in the line of sight of a ball that like brushes past his leg, then that shouldn't be a thing. Then that's not a thing. That will never get called, because you can't get closer to a ball than that. It was, I mean, those are rules that we have in the game that goals get called back for. Too many of them. If they're not going to call it, just don't call it. If they are going to call it, call it. But there were those 2 things on that one play that led to a goal. It's
all right.
Okay. Dealing with the handling the ball, the handling the ball. First off, there was no intent. That's one. And 2, they did make a statement late last year that they were going to not disallow goals simply because there was a handball leading up to the goal. Now, if of course the person who handles the ball and then subsequently scores himself, that's one thing. But they went ahead and said they were gonna, if you go back to previous passes or previous parts of the play, they aren't gonna look at that. And so
I think if it's in the opposition, so if somebody on the opposing team handles the ball, because like if you handle the ball or Mike knocks off of Mike's wrist or an illegal position into somebody's path to score a goal, I think that does come back.
That's it. Those have come back. Okay, so they changed this, they changed that, tweak.
That's the problem. They keep changing things. They can't definitively figure out what they want to be a handball. Okay, and it's really simple. Ball to hand, we got no problem. Hand to ball, we've got a problem. That's as simple as it gets.
Although, of course,
I think
Anthony
it's-
Taylor was the referee in the FA Cup final last year, where the ball bounced off Reece James's knee into his hand, and it gave him a red card. You know, again, Anthony Taylor.
This gets back to the crux of the problem. It's still just poor officiating. It's very
It's just
poor.
poor.
He's a poor official. He's bad. And he shouldn't be officiating Chelsea games, because very, very many times in very critical moments, it was the beginning of the year game last August against Liverpool, he made bad calls. FA Cup final against, it's these critical moments. Anthony Taylor seems to be out there, and his calls always seem to draw a lot of criticism, not just from the Chelsea fans, from a lot of people. And then it's another big game, and there's Anthony Taylor again. Like,
so I want to get off, get past Anthony Taylor. I mean, I agree. He was really bad. This has been an ongoing thing. The level of officiating we can discuss, and we will discuss at points in time throughout this season, because we always do. It hardly a week goes by where we don't have some sort of issue with some officiating in certain games. I want to talk about the tail of the tape. That heavyweight fight that is Thomas Tuchel and Antonio Conte.
Exciting stuff.
At one point, though, it did look a little bit like Muggsy Bogues trying to square up against Shaq.
First of all, Muggsy Bogues squared up against J.R. Reed, picked him up and threw him on his head. J.R. Reed's 6'10". True story. True story. Yeah. Telling you, man, I had Conte on that one. I'm sorry. Tuchel looks like me if I lost 15 pounds. That's how skinny that dude is. All right. So I'm sorry. Take Conte in that one.
Yeah, Conte was definitely not backing down.
No, I thought it was fantastic, though. I do. I thought it was
and
great.
Then the tweet today.
I think it's great, though. But see, I think Tuchel saw that and laughed. I think he probably found that to be pretty funny. And also, you know, they didn't shit on each other in the press conferences. I mean, Tuchel even said, he was like, you know, that's what you guys pay for. You know, he didn't feed into it. And I thought his interview was great. And as far as the game is concerned, I thought Chelsea actually looked really good. I thought they looked fantastic. And I was like, wow, maybe I should have put them where I put them for my pool. I thought they looked really good. And also, like I said, no knock on Spurs. I thought, considering the environment, considering the time of the year, I thought Spurs played a good game. So, but that was one of the better games I've seen in the Premier League in a while. That was exciting. I like to see the coaches get into it. And it was a lot better than when Arsene Wenger gave the Tyrannosaurus Rex arms when he tried to push Jose Mourinho. I mean, this one looked like there was some actual heat in there. Come on, you know Wenger doesn't want to wrinkle his suit. He's not going to do anything like that. Whereas you saw, look, Conte was ready to go. He was ready to go. And I thought that was great. I thought it was great. And I like the fact that they're not getting lambasted for being, you know, acting like hooligans or whatever. No, it's almost being applauded to see two coaches like really, really getting at it and really, really almost coming to blows in the field. It was funny and they were smiling about it. I thought it was great.
I mean, you guys are all pretty quick to pick Conte there, but I mean, Tuchel's got those.
He's got some range.
Conte's got to get inside. I don't know if Tuchel was going to let him.
Conte comes in, he comes low, comes over. You know, you might be all right.
Remember that was why Mike Tyson won all of those fights, because he was smaller and he could get in and hit him with the body.
Hit him with the body shots, man.
This was a great game for so many things, right? And before we turn topics and let Mike talk a little bit about the lower leagues real quick, Los, I want to start by going and saying, what do you think that this whole thing means for the next time that these two teams meet? You had a great game, a very well played game, bit of a, you could say, a bit of controversy, a bit of a, we have the whole entire thing with the officiating with the with the managers. But on the whole, I would say these teams matched up early season pretty evenly. And I can't complain. I can imagine that you would have liked to have either team would have liked to have won, but a draw seems like a pretty fair result to me based on the balance of the game that I saw. How do you feel about the performance, and what do you think it means for these two teams moving forward?
Well, I mean, we could have played better. I think the draw was a good result for us, given how things were going and Chelsea was dominating and such. I think it's going to be different at the new year when they play again. I think it's January or February that they play at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I imagine there will be some tension still with the coaches. I think what will happen is they'll a couple things. First off, getting back to the post-game handshake. If you watch this like Zapruder, when you look at frame by frame, what's happening here? You see Conte just wanted to just get a handshake and walk away. And walk to the supporters, the Spurs supporters section. And Tuchel was having none of it. He was like, hey, look me in the eye. Because that's what they do. They look each other in the eye but Conte wasn't about that. And he just wanted to shake hands and move on. He didn't want to not shake hands, because then that's another story in the press. So what happens? He gets pulled back. He keeps trying to get out, but he keeps dragging him back in. And then all of a sudden there was let me go. If you read the lips, Conte say, let me go. And Tuchel's saying, you need to look me in the eyes. And it's two different mentalities there on the handshake. And so that is what it is. Now, getting to what's going to happen next time, I believe the two of them are going to be more genteel, if you will, in the press. They will go ahead and be a little more cordial in the press leading up to it. They aren't going to say any harsh words. They're going to have mad respect for each other. And it's not going to be Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas kissing before the match. It ain't going to be that. Okay. But it's going to be, they'll shake hands and they'll be professional, more professional, at least at the get-go. One of the things I can almost guarantee is that this match is going to be behind the paywall of Peacock. It won't be on USA. It won't be on NBC. It won't be. Do you want to see this game? See the fireworks that happened before. Oh, it's going to happen again. Join us on Peacock. That's what's going to happen. So I can guarantee that's what's going to happen there. And Anthony Taylor's going to be on VAR.
Yeah. All right,
Probably.
Mike, give us your last thoughts on this game as we get ready to move forward and talk about some of the other ones.
So I think Chelsea really showed you something out there. They deserved better than a 2-2 draw. But where they're still lacking is up front. They have 3 guys now. They've upgraded with Sterling, who are really good at getting in space, but they're not really good at putting the ball in the goal. Havertz, before Reece James put the go-ahead goal in, Kai Havertz missed a wide open opportunity that all he had to do was touch it. Chelsea needs someone up front. And I mean, at this point, they might just have to go get Sam Kerr to play on the men's team. Because Sam Kerr always scores goals. But I mean, aside from that, the game planning was perfect. I will give Antonio Conte credit. His substitutes were a great match. And Tuchel's resubstitutes were a great back. It was a great coaching battle. And it's a shame it almost ended in fisticuffs, because I think it takes away from what a great coaching match it was. But Chelsea need to get better at finishing, or they're never gonna, they'll be like they were last year, maybe 3rd, maybe 4th. But if they want to enter that top tier, that elite arena, they need to score the goals.
Yeah, Kai Havertz got some of that Josie Altidore in him, man. He can't score in front of a goal with no goalie there. He'll still kick it over the top. That is crazy. I mean,
all of them, Mason Mount.
Yeah. But Kai Havertz's ability to be in position is probably the thing that seems to be the most striking. He always seems to know where to be. It's just he just doesn't seem to finish the job. because it's not always easy to know where the ball's going to be. He seems to have a knack for it, but
on the side note, a related note to the game, Perisic, a recent pickup by Spurs, got an assist on that Harry Kane equalizer with the corner kick. Just thought I'd throw that out there for my Croatian fans.
All right, so Mike, before we let you guys go, give us an update on what we can look forward to in the lower leagues in advance of your weekly lower league report.
Yeah, I mean, there were some great matches. QPR went to the Stadium of Light this weekend, and their keeper scored the equalizer in the 90+2. ESPN actually has 4 matches on this week. There's 2 of them tomorrow, or 1 tomorrow Tuesday and 1 on Wednesday. Sheffield Sunderland Wednesday will be fun. QPR Blackpool tomorrow will be okay, but Norwich and Millwall on Friday I think is really interesting. I never got around to doing a full lower league preview like I wanted to. But in the half one that I wrote, I said, why not Millwall? Millwall was good at the end of the season last year, and they're a team who's in the ascendancy. They're doing the right things. Meanwhile, Norwich are kings, right? Our kings of Jersey Week last week.
Yeah.
So apparently they have a 3rd jersey that they trotted out against Hull, right? Hull wears yellow. We have to wear a different color. They have a white tie-dye jersey. It didn't even look any different. They have these regal jerseys and they didn't wear them. But anyway, you guys, Norwich, much like Man U, are sitting right now at the bottom of the championship. So I think that game on Friday, Millwall, Norwich, it's a good test for Millwall, and it's a good test of how bad Norwich is. And I will do a lower league report to tell you why I think Norwich is bad.
Yeah, I'm looking now at this jersey. Now, Leeds have like a legit tie-dye jersey. I'm looking at this. This is not.
It's like very white. It's like faded.
Yeah, but as you look at it, it's very pastel, like Easter-looking colors. Lots of pale pinks and purples and light blues. It is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe the club took a round. They saw that their performances this season haven't been good enough, and they decided that they couldn't wear the Kings jersey. They had to go out there and look like a bunny on Easter.
Yeah, this is,
and they did. They lost.
This is definitely looks like it would be appropriate for your Easter afternoon kick around, but. All right, Mike and Lois, we want to thank you very much for coming on and joining us this evening and talking a little bit about the first of a number of London derbies that are to come. This one being in between Spurs and Chelsea, and an early contender for best game of the month and worst refereeing performance of the month.
And fight of the month.
Yeah, so it's got it all. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much, and we'll get you back later on, hopefully next week, to talk some more. Yeah, after Saturday, look, Stead, I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit in the I was feeling a bit bummed. It was not a particularly great performance. But I was happy that I turned that one on and watched, because it was a good watch. I thought, from a neutral perspective, I thought that was a really good game. Other than the fact that I agree with both of them, and you as well. I just think Anthony Taylor was not up to it. And if it's a matter of he's letting players play, and then there's just poor officiating.
Right.
And
right. There's a difference. Absolutely.
This went from letting the players play, encouraging the game to continue and have continuity, to just flat out missing things that needed to be called. And as a result, that's why you see some of these tensions in between the players and in between the managers. And he needed to put a stop to that.
Absolutely. I mean, you saw Havertz getting into it with one of the defenders, and they've been jawing and elbowing and pushing and stuff. And it's and to defend Havertz, when you get clipped the way he got clipped, it's almost natural that you would start to get a little pissy. You'd probably take a jab, take an extra elbow because the person wasn't penalized for what was an egregious tackle. So it's I don't even think it's a fine line because everyone knows what a ticky-tack foul is,
Mhm.
And also I think by doing that, you're going to limit the number of flopping that you see when the players know, like, you got to really kind of take a hit to really milk a foul. You got to really get fouled. And you're seeing players though who are clearly getting fouled. It's blatantly obvious that that's a foul and there's no call. I still think they probably need to put 2 officials in the field. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't want to do it, but
I think part of the problem is the lack of referees with the proper certifications.
Oh yeah, but that's
up and down.
Yeah, but that's not the people who could be. That's not their fault. It's the fault of the FA for not taking the time to recruit and train and actively make a better officiating core. Now, look, being official is hard. I'd never want to do it. I did it one season for the Interfraternity Council League at my college, and I was like, I will never do that again because I couldn't stand officiating for people who didn't even understand the rules of the game. But there could also be specific measures they could take to improve the quality of officiating by simply, I don't know, paying more, making the job seem more attractive, making people who have a passion for the game, because clearly that's there. Not everybody can be a player. Get in there and officiate. And it's take a page, go ask rugby. What do y'all do? How come it works for you guys and not us? And just start doing some research. The worst thing you can do is keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. That's the true definition of insanity. So I'd love to see that change.
I would love to too. And like I said, I know that we're going to continue to have this conversation throughout the remainder of the season because it's impossible to go more than a week without talking about the state of officiating and having our fair share of gripes about the way games are called. So we will continue to allow that to develop as the year goes on. But we want to welcome on our good friend. We haven't had a chance to talk to him in a little bit, but we want to welcome on our good friend Cam. Celtic Cam, how goes it, sir?
Good. How are you guys?
We are doing quite well. You were bringing up the point, one of the things that goes on in rugby that's different is how the players communicate with the ref and how the refs communicate with everything. There is a certain amount of respect in between players and refs in a rugby match that you just don't see in football. And I think that the surrounding the ref, the kind of agitating for calls, the histrionics that go on the course of a game, the abuse that refs take from all corners in a soccer game, you just don't get in refereeing in other sports, in cricket, in rugby, even in American football.
Yeah, you don't see it in American football. You really
Not-
don't. There's some
not
disagreements
like that.
there, but they don't do that. No.
You're never going to see a 300-pound lineman get right up in the referee's face and start yelling at him.
Yeah, and you see referees will get in their face and they'll calm them down. You see it all the time. They're like, hey, chill, step back off. And you see the players, they listen. They're like, okay,
And I mean, this is just something I've experienced in my past. I've played both football, soccer, and I've actually played American football for a season, but we're never going to talk about that.
Oh, go ahead, Ken. That's pretty good. That's a different show.
But I played rugby for a long time. And part of what was ingrained in us at a young age was that whatever the ref says goes, and you always respect the ref, period. And I was never quite taught that to the same extent in youth football or soccer that I was in rugby. So I don't know if it could even be cultural, in terms of the sport, not in terms of, where you're playing, but in terms of the sport, it could be a cultural thing of the sport. Because, I was always taught that the referee in rugby is the main man of the game. You don't disrespect him, period. Whatever he says kind of goes. If you disagree, then you kind of get ready for the next play sort of thing. So I don't know. It could be a cultural thing. Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's also within the laws of the game. we struggle to find referees for soccer matches over here, and it's the abuse that they take all the way up.
Yeah.
And who want to do that? Who want to be a ref? Who want to subject themselves to it? You really, really, really got to appreciate what you're doing to want to take on that responsibility. And when we talk about the EFA needing to do better, I think that they want to do better. I think the problem is just they have a greater need than they have supply. It's a supply demand issue, right? There's more of a demand than there is a supply, so you got to take what you can get at certain points. So let's turn our attention to what's going on the pitch in the land of enchantment. We are 2 matches in. Shock of all shocks, Celtic are unbeaten and on top of the table.
Thank you, goal differential.
Rangers escaped a very interesting tie against a Belgian side to make it to the final playoff rounds, to make it into the group stage of the Champions League, a place that they need to get. So give us an kind of a overview of what we're looking at right now up in Scotland.
Yes, I think I'm actually very excited for this season. I think Celtic, Rangers, and Hearts have all come out looking like very strong teams. I'll start with Hearts here. Lawrence Shankland, who was someone that we were looking at for a couple years, ended up not getting. He has come out fantastic for Hearts so far. He's gotten 2 goals in the 2 games. He's a young forward. I think it was the Motherwell game, I want to say. He scored within the first minute. I mean, really young powerhouse kind of guy, like a straight up forward and aggressive, able to play the field very well. Looks really, really good. So I'm actually excited to see how he plays out. In terms of Rangers, they've made some big pickups. I know I was chatting with Rob about this for a little bit, but Tillman, I mean, that one kind of shook my nerve a little bit. That's a young player with some real potential there. Some real potential. He's already showed that in the first few games, both, playing that union side, and then even playing, in the domestic side of things. So I'm kind of a little wary of him, and Kolak too. Kolak, I think, was someone that was seen as kind of a, not done and dusted, but not really a big pickup. But if you look at, before his slump, shall we say, he was a good player. He was a very good player. And I think Scotland's always been known as the kind of place where you can reinvigorate a player, get their career back on track. And I have a feeling that's probably going to be the kind of thing that happens with Kolak. In terms of Celtic, as you mentioned, we're off to a really good start here. Some really good wins, 5-0 win over Killy this past weekend, big one. Some really fantastic playing there, even though Killy is down at the bottom. I think just the type of play that we had shows that we're setting up for Europe. Angie is aware that, the big thing this season is not just going to be domestic, but it's also going to be Champions League. We have a chance in the group stages here. We can really make some good money, really make the fans proud. So, yeah, I mean, I will say I'm upset. I think it was Alex, wasn't it Codillo, the guy that went from Barcelona to, I don't even know, Iche, probably pronouncing that wrong in Spanish, but he's a strong midfielder, and he's been kind of left on the fringes of Barcelona, but he's young, very powerful midfielder. He can be defensive, attacking, kind of in the same sort of motion. So I'm upset we didn't get him, but as of now, the squad looks really strong. I think it's going to be a real big battle between Celtic and Rangers, and I think we'll see that kind of come to fruition on September 3rd when we have the first Old Firm here.
So, oddly, one of those things, if you look up and down the Scottish Premiership table, Ross County are the only team right now that has not picked up a point. So we're seeing a little bit of competitiveness, a little bit of parity throughout the divisions. You said, and correctly so, Celtic and Rangers, the odds-on favorites to run away with it, up at the top of the table, with 3 victories from 3 games. Motherwell coming in right now. I'm sorry, Hearts, who you mentioned, in 3rd, with 2 wins and a draw. Motherwell Livingston both having 2 wins and a loss, and then Hibs and Aberdeen in those 6th and 7th places, the ones that would go in for Europe and miss the split where it happened today. But fortunately, the split doesn't happen for another 6 months.
Yeah.
Talk about the fact that are we seeing some more competitiveness from these teams early on or is that just the way the schedule has kind of developed for the first couple of matches?
No, it is interesting. I think we are seeing some of these clubs that, I like to look at Motherwell. Motherwell had a great start last season. They're off to a pretty good start so far. I mean, they got a little unfortunate in terms of, I think Motherwell played Celtic already. But I think we're seeing some teams that are off to a really good start here. Motherwell beating Aberdeen is pretty big. I know Aberdeen's in still a rebuilding phase, but even then, that's a big one. Livingston beating Hibs. I think that's a big one too. Hibs is they tied in the Edinburgh Derby with Hearts, who, Hearts are in 3rd. Hibs, I think, are in 4th or 5th at this point in time. But Livingston's sitting up there too. So I think you're absolutely right. A lot of these teams are coming out the gate really hot here. And even just looking at some of these other games, like the Livingston Hibs game, it was much more attacking. It was much more, to put it in a certain fashion, more Angie style football. I think Scotland has kind of seen a little bit of Angie and even maybe Gio's football in terms of that attacking style football and how effective it can be. So I think the big contender for this week, I'm looking at the matches that are going on this week.
There are some really good. That's what I was going to say.
They're all they're all next to each other in the table, or they're one team away. They're very competitive.
So the headline matches, of course, are going to be the early Saturday kickoff, 7:30 Eastern time, Hibs and Rangers.
Yes.
In and amongst the other ones on Sunday at 10, you have Celtic and Hearts. Outside of that, though, beyond those two, which are big matches, let's a couple of Edinburgh, Glasgow derbies. There's a lot of beyond even just the capital versus the second city, rivalries across socioeconomics, religion, all of that going into these two games. But your pick of the other 4 matches that are going on this weekend, if you had to watch one other outside of those two, which one do you think it would be?
I think it's gonna be Motherwell Livingston. I think Motherwell is, again, I'm really impressed with pulling this way as early on as they are. They do tend to burn out a little bit. Livingston, however, usually is more of a plateau team. They usually stay pretty even amongst that kind of 6 to 8 range. So the fact they're sitting in 5th, I'm really interested to see how they play against Motherwell. I think that is going to be a kind of a game of attrition, so to say. I think they're going to be coming for each other. We've seen some really good footwork from Livingston over the past couple of games, like that midfield type passing, that possession, able to be very clinical. And then Motherwell have just been very attacking orientated. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how they play out, especially with Livingston not playing on their home turf, but playing on actual field.
So let's turn our attention to the UCL tomorrow. We have the final qualifying leg of the UCL. To this point, over the course of the last couple of seasons, Rangers has been able to use the home field advantage that they enjoy at Ibrox, perhaps better than just about any other team. And it seems perpetually like they've been able to do it because they always seem to be playing the second leg at home. Well, this time they've got it a little bit tougher. Not only do they have a pretty tough draw in PSV Eindhoven, but they're playing the first leg at the Ibrox before having to go back to the Netherlands to deal with Eindhoven. This could be very dangerous. How do you see this one going for Sevco?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Ibrox has always been, or Castle Grayskull has always been a pretty terrible place to play at. That fan atmosphere, which, Celtic also creates, just a little bit better, obviously. But that fan atmosphere really gives backing to the team. I think PSV have a fantastic team right now. Luc de Jong, Vermaelen, I think Sangra is the other one. Some really, really strong players. And I mean, we looked at how they played against Monaco, how they were able to, come back starting at the 89th minute and just, pull through. So, Monaco is not an easy place to play either. So I think PSV have that ability and that capability to take a win away from Ibrox. I think they might be one of the few teams that could have been drawn against Rangers to be able to take that away from them. I mean, I think the coach is Nistelrooy right now, and he's had a fantastic start to his campaign there. So I think it's going to be actually tougher than Rangers expect. Rangers do like to rely on their home support, as with many other teams that have a strong backing. But I think this is going to be especially hard for Rangers, just given the quality of some of the PSV players. The fact that Van Nistelrooy does recognize Ibrox, he's played there before. He recognizes the type of stadium that it is, the fan base. So I think they're going to be more prepared than a number of other teams that could have been drawn against them.
As for the other team that's still in Europe right now in the playoff legs, they're going to be playing on Thursday in the Europa League. That would be Heart, who have been drawn against FC Zurich in this round. How do you see that tie going for Hearts?
That's a difficult one for Hearts. I think that is a difficult one for Hearts. FC Zurich they have a reputation in Europe. They do. Again, another team with a very strong fan base, very vicious fan base in terms of home stadiums. As I say, there's some standout players. Lawrence Shankland, especially, as I mentioned earlier. I think he's an absolute weapon for Hearts. I think he's an absolute weapon. I think he could be the deciding factor if Hearts come away with this. But I think this is going to be a difficult one for Hearts. I'll put it that way. I don't see this as an easy one for them. I see the team with the advantage here is FC Zurich.
So last week, Dundee United's adventure in Europe ended quite unceremoniously. You had told us you were interested to see how they would do in Europe. Well, let's say they did get something out of the first leg, but then it went really badly from there, and they ended up losing 7-0 to AZ Alkmaar, and the tie itself was 7-1, and they get bounced from the Conference League.
Yeah, that was kind of like it went from like Braveheart to like Paddington Bear goes to Bosnia. It just really escalated a lot very quickly there for Dundee. That was a brutal game. I stopped watching it at halftime. I was like, this is soul crushing at this point in time. It was sad to see because Dundee is a team, I feel like over the past few years, I've seen them come up from the lowest of the low, getting Tony Watt last season and really trying, and to get as far as they did, and then just be absolutely stumped like a cockroach was just so brutal to see.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. All right, my man. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll get you back next week to talk a little bit more about the going-ons in the land of enchantment.
Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great evening.
So, yeah, Stead, that performance by Dundee last week, that was bad. And while we wait on Uncle Leo to come in and talk to us a little bit about just his experience working with the Glazers and how he sees the future developing for the Glazers from a perspective of somebody who covers the box. I want to get your worst performance last week. Manchester United against, which one was worse? Dundee at AZ Alkmaar or Manchester United against Brentford?
Well, the easy one is to pick is Manchester United against Brentford, considering that the difference in talent between those clubs. But, I'll say this. A club like AZ, who has been a bit more competitive in their respective division than I would say Dundee has been in the SPL over the past few years. I think it's just easier for a team like them to be successful. I mean, the two-headed monster of the SPL is something that I really don't think any other league in the world has to contend with. It's funny. It's either it's a one-team league like the Greek league, or it is a three-team league in a way. There's really not too many two-headed monsters that dominate in the manner that the Old Firm dominates. So I think for a club like Dundee, they got to just be happy just to have qualified for conference, even if it's just sort of competition. Like, hey, they got a game. It's pretty cool.
You know what? I want to I want to be that person that initially challenged and be like, well, look at Spain.
Yeah,
but it is more rare that a team outside of Celtic and Rangers haven't won a title in Scotland since the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. And that coach went to Manchester United. So
yes.
So, you know,
that manager, not only did that manager go to Manchester United, that manager was Sir Alex Ferguson.
Like the best Premier League manager of all time, and maybe one of the best managers ever in Europe. So yeah. So, it took that to dethrone Celtic and Rangers. So, you know, it's difficult. I mean, I think Dundee should just be like, dude, we got a couple of games. That's pretty cool. We got a home and home, and hopefully they got an extra, £1 million. Maybe they did, which could actually go a really long way. I mean, you get a televised game, you get another chance to sell tickets in Europe, and anytime you sell tickets and get on TV, that's a little bit extra money for you. So
I think
it's positive.
People, when we deal with the amount of money that is paid and invested and the numbers that go around, the big leagues in Europe, when we talk about the Premier League and fees and how much players are, Manchester United may agree a fee with Juventus for Adrian Rabiot, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 million pounds, right? And I'm using that to say that just doesn't seem like a lot of money. But when you're a club, we forget how, when you look at clubs outside of these big leagues in the likes of Dundee or in the SPL, or even, with the budgets that a PSV Eindhoven has, and they're owned by Philips. It's literally the Philips Sport Club is what PSV stands for. We don't realize, how much that million here, million there, that little, what Dundee made on this little adventure into the Europa Conference League this year may be the difference in between remaining competitive in Europe and potentially falling through the trap door and falling out of the Scottish Premier League, because that could be, we could finance the sales of a couple of bigger players. People may get to see some of these players and say, okay, we might want this guy, we might want that guy.
Right.
Number one. Number two, that additional revenue gives them the ability to buy players that they may not have been able to do. And so those margins, when we think about it, when we talk about it, let's not forget that not everything is as posh as the Premier League or La Liga or league, or much of league, well, mostly just PSG and League.
Yeah, maybe Marseille,
and maybe sometimes Lyon. But for some of these teams, this televised games, these are the only times that they'll get to play these regularly televised games. That's the only time that they're going to get a cut of this additional revenue, and that is for them a big deal.
Absolutely.
So we're going to go ahead and now hopefully Leo will join us shortly, but until he does, we're going to go ahead and welcome on our good friend Bayern Rob, who's waiting in the wings as always. Today he's sporting a USA kit. So this would have been the USA away kit from what, about 4 years ago, Rob?
Roughly?
Yeah,
that's about right.
It's right after they changed the crest. It's got the black body and then one red sleeve and one blue sleeve. And the reason why I bring this up was
Oh, I know why.
until you saw that. Apparently, there are pictures floating around the internet that may be the leaks of the US's kit for the World Cup. And Weston McKennie appeared to confirm that they were right when he said, "I told y'all not to do it."
Tried to tell him is the quote.
I tried to tell him. And it's not that they're hideous. They're just kind of
Blah.
Yeah, they're just blah.
There's no ambition. Like I'm like, look, you're telling me that the US is gonna wear that when they're gonna beat England on Black Friday? I'm like, you gotta look good when you're dominating teams, right? And I mean, all right, Sean and everybody who's gonna talk about England, save yourself. All right, this is my segment at the moment. But no, these shirts, man, unambition. I mean, like, oh, just there's no like flavor, there's no fire to them. Like I'm not gonna wear that like other than a match day. I'm like, or on this show. I'm not gonna like wear that like when I'm like just stunting in the city, or I'm going out and about on my errands and shit. Like no. I will probably buy it because I'll probably find a good deal, but they're not fire. They're not like casual wear. I'm feeling myself. I got the matching shoes. I got some Air Jordans going on. None of that. No, nope. These are a big nope. I'm sorry.
The best tweet is this American Hooligan said the white one looks like a half-finished defective shirt sold at TJ Maxx for $4.99, and the blue one looks like something a 4-year-old made after watching Blippi tie-dye video. Having watched several episodes of Blippi with my children, that is fantastic.
We all know about Blippi as parents, and the blue one too looks like the BP oil spill.
That's terrible.
Which is only fitting that when it comes to U.S. disasters, and we're going to go play this World Cup in an oil state.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, the funny thing is, I guess Nike has a thing for tie-dye uniforms this year. Like, is that their design template? Is like everybody's away uniform is now going to be tie-dye?
There's a lot of that going on. Yeah.
We're one of the places in this world that hosts a fashion week in New York City. I know Milan has their thing, so does Paris, and they're world renowned. But we also have one at Bryant Park. All right, we can't find some fashion designers who can make a fire kit. Really? You're telling me you can't? I've seen some rendered from people that look amazing. And then US Soccer is gonna be like, nope, forget that. We're gonna do this boring template. Anytime you see template is being used as a basis for a shirt or a fashion design, it's atrocious. It belongs in like Ross or whatever, Ross Brothers or whatever you call it. It's bad.
Another good one is Filippo Silva on Twitter said, whatever dual national player we're fighting for, we might have just lost them.
Yeah. And the only reason we're getting the Mexicans is because they're dropping L's everywhere. It's not this shirt. It's not this shirt ain't going to bring them over.
So I was talking about Adidas did for Leeds this sort of tie-dye yellow and blue shirt to wear away from home. And it actually looks... they wore it for the first time this weekend in the Premier League, and it looked pretty decent. Then I'm looking at what Nike's trying to do, and it's like it looks eerily similar to the ones that we just got rid of with the kind of the blue, and then not a huge fan. So moving on from jerseys to things that are actually going on, talk to us about what's going on in the Bundesliga.
Oh man, I mean, like, so obviously I want to talk a little bit about Bayern too, because for the last two matches we're pretty much the world's thinking Lewandowski had an awful game, and actually everybody had an awful game at Barca. Meanwhile, you're playing center back, you don't know who's coming at you, whether it be Sadio Mane, Serge Gnabry, Thomas Muller, or who's been the gem of the league so far. And Jamal Musiala, who came on a free transfer from Chelsea. I will keep saying it to you, Chelsea Mike, and everybody in the Bundesliga who cries poverty. We got Jamal Musiala on a free. He was attainable, all right? they're just rocking and rolling, and it's going to be easy now because they play the same lineup like 2 games in a row. When Europe starts and Champions League starts, it's going to be a little different. We're going to see what happens. You're going to see different styles, and they're going to have to encounter different things. But it's going to take someone ambitious enough to sock Bayern in the mouth, because if they play like kind of defensively, low blockish, whatever, mid block, Bayern's just going to tear them up. It's funny. Like, they brought Matthias the lead in, and Upamecano's been amazing. They brought in Mazraoui from Ajax, and Benjamin Pavard's been amazing. It's almost like they needed competition to actually do well. Marcel Sabitzer is like a different player. Like, he's playing like a dual. He's like playing in an 8 or 6. Him and Kimmich are like kind of switching off here and there. They've been amazing overall. Clean sheet last week or this past weekend versus Wolfsburg. Niko Kovac comes back, to the Allianz Arena for the first time since he's been fired. And then Hansi Flick took over and won everything. So they're one of the stories of the league. But the Bundesliga got really excited. It got started really excitedly with the Freiburg Dortmund match. That was really good because Freiburg were actually winning 1-0 late, and then the keeper had a howler. Frecken had a ball hit directly to him, went right through the hands. He hit the ball and it just went over his shoulder, and then the flood waters came through. Dortmund ended up winning 3-1. Freiburg missed a great opportunity to get 3 points at home versus Dortmund, and they blew it. So that was disappointing for them. And the other story, which has been fascinating to me, is Bayer Leverkusen, also known for a variety of reasons, including this year. Bayer Leverkusen, they've been awful, 2 losses in a row, and they lost to Augsburg at home, in their home. In Leverkusen. It's Patrick Schick is like, he gets no service. Diaby's not doing what he's supposed to do last year, and they're missing Florian Wirtz so bad. And Augsburg, just beat them, beat legitly 2-1. That's I don't know what's going on with them. Hertha Berlin barely scratched a draw versus Frankfurt. I still think they will be relegated. At the most, they'll get to a playoff spot, which they'll probably play Hamburg for all intent and purposes. And the other good team that I'm actually feeling is Schalke. Schalke, they drew Gladbach and Gelsenkirchen, which is they got to draw late. They were down 2-1. They got a goal in the late stages. And I think they're going to do mid-table. I know they were relegated and then they suffered there for a little bit, but I think they're back. I think there's a shock of new. They got new young players, and I think they'll do fine mid-table. They're not gonna compete for Champions League for a while. They need to kind of settle themselves, get their finances in order, get some Bundesliga money in, and hopefully do well, decently in the Pokal, and then just keep going. But yeah, that's the Bundesliga. Bayern just cruising. Leipzig kind of being blah. They drew Cologne, and so when Bayern win the league in March, you could blame Leipzig for drawing. You blame Dortmund for losing early or barely being a Freiburg and whatnot. But yeah, no. But those are the stories of the Bundesliga. A lot to go on, and I think a lot of the teams are really excited for Champions League to start soon. I think the draw is happening like a week or so. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll be able to. I believe the draw is, the end of next week.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So we'll start to see who's going into what pot and where, and we'll have plenty to talk about when we go over that. You talked about Bayern running away with it, and the narrative after last season was, they need to change up some things. How are they going to reload? Bruce, you yourself talked about some of the players that Dortmund picked up and some of the moves that some of the other teams made, and how it was looking like the league may be closing in. But then we just see Bayern start the season the way they have. And again, they look like no one's going to catch them on their way to championship number 11 in a row.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. They basically Lewandowski didn't want to be there anymore, so he's gone. They cashed in. They upgraded the center back position, upgraded the full back position, and got a player in Sadio Mane, which allows Nagelsmann to play the way he wants to play this team. He never really was a person who had a dedicated striker. I think Lewandowski was the first time he really had one. He played with one. He likes having like a lot more fluidity to the offense, and Sadio Mane provides that. So they've been playing kind of a weird 4-4-2 sometimes. Sometimes they'll have three in the back, and they'll have about three up front. Serge Gnabry is pretty much starts as a striker, but then he'll switch off, go to the wing, and then Muller will come in there. Musiala will like come into the middle as well, even though he'll play almost like a left wing. Coleman is still suspended from a red card from last season. That's why he was on the bench these first two games. So it'd be interesting to see what he comes back with. I mean, when he comes back and how they're going to do. And then you got Leroy Sané, who Bayern paid big money for him. He makes good money every week, and he's on the bench. Musiala has relegated Leroy Sané to the bench. But they're going to need all the pieces when it comes time to Europe and playing, the cup matches and all that, because everybody needs a rest here and there.
So if we're looking at the race for number 2, does that look like it's just Borussia Dortmund all the way? Can Leipzig keep doing what they're doing and expect to remain in the top half, I guess, is the better question, because again, they've started off like they did last year, a little bit on the slower side.
Timo Werner changes everything, right? It's going to be weird. It's going to be interesting because Timo Werner left Leipzig when they were one kind of team, and now he's back at Leipzig and they're a totally different team. They're not the Leipzig that we know where they counterattack. And Timo Werner loves being on a counterattacking team because it allows him to kind of like, kind of wait in the wings, almost like how Vardy did with Leicester, where when like the midfield of like Drinkwater and Conte would like win the ball in the midfield, and then Vardy would go to the races, and that would be what Timo Werner would do. And he scored a ton of goals that way. They don't play that way necessarily anymore. So it's gonna, if he integrates well, if he learned a few things being in Chelsea, I think Leipzig will be number 2. Because I think they have more offensive weapons. Danny Olmo's really good. I think he got burnt out last season because he had like the Olympics and he had Euros, Olympics in season, so he never really got himself together. I think now he's back refreshed a minute to go. But Leipzig has those tools and they should do it. But I did pick Dortmund to finish second, only because I think they did add plenty of pieces who are good pieces, and they just all have to put it together.
So any other teams or players that you want us to be looking out for as we continue to watch the Bundesliga develop?
I will tell you, it's interesting when Anthony Modeste moved from Cologne. He was one of the top strikers in the league last season. He moved from Cologne, went to Dortmund because Sebastian Haller, got cancer, and he's out. He's going to be out for a bit. I'm wondering to see how Modeste will do with all this talent around him at Dortmund. He did so well at Cologne with scoring goals. Is the stage too big for him? This is going to be one of his first big clubs he's going to be playing at. Is the stage too big for him? Can he do what he does in Cologne and even do it better because he has more players around him? Is he going to weather under the pressure? And that's going to be something I want to watch out for. And just from the American point of view, I want to see what Jordan Peacock does, aka Seabachu. But he has Jordan on the back of his shirt, so just call him Jordan at this point. I know Union didn't score against Mainz, so they got a draw in Mainz, but it'd be interesting to see like how he develops in his race to get on a plane to Qatar. He made a big move. This is a big move for him. Union Berlin, I think, is a really good team. I think they will compete for Europe this season. And the question is, will it be because Jordan Peacock / Sibichu is a contributor to that, and he gets on a plane to Qatar? That's another one to be looking forward to. And even despite losing to Bayern, I'm really curious to see how Niko Kovac does back in the Bundesliga. He was really good at Frankfurt, did amazing things there. He beat Bayern in the Pokal final. He's a legend in Frankfurt. Can he get Wolfsburg back into a Champions League spot, or even just in Europe in general? I think they'll be mid-table, but Niko Kovac can do things with some young players, and so he's going to be someone. I'm going to keep an eye on him. Can he revert to some of that magic he had at Freiburg?
All right. So last question for you before we let you get out of here for the evening. Looking at the upcoming week's worth of fixtures, which begin on Friday afternoon with Borussia Mönchengladbach and Hertha Berlin, which ones is there any that stick out to you as ones that we should be paying attention to?
Union Berlin versus Leipzig. Definitely should look out for that one. It's going to be Union Berlin at home. I think they have a really good defense. Can they stop, Poulsen, Silva, Olmo, and Timo Werner? That'd be a good one to have.
And those are two of the only East German teams in the Bundesliga.
That's right. That's correct. You're right. So that's gonna be fun. Or just for Professor Matt's gonna love that one. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see about Leverkusen, Hoffenheim. If Leverkusen lose again, and it lose again at home, is the fire is going to start to get hot. The seat's going to start to get really, really warm because they can't afford to drop points like that, especially home points. It's like the saying is you could drop points on the road, but you really got to win your home games. When you don't even get a point at home, that's not good. So that's going to be something to look forward to. And probably the other one is I'm curious to see how Schalke does on the road against Wolfsburg. I'm curious to see if they can pull out a couple upset wins here and there. I picked Wolfsburg to win, but it would not shock me if Schalke actually gets themselves together and actually pulls out a win. So those are 3 games to watch. But the number one pick is when you're in Berlin and Leipzig. You gotta watch that game. It's a 12:30 game too, so you don't even have to wake up for that. So you can have some brunch, enjoy. It's gonna be a big one, I think.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, buddy, for coming on and telling us a little bit about what to look out for in the Bundesliga. And
good night, gents.
And we are going to turn our attention now to the top of the Premier League table and welcome in our good friend Larry, who's going to tell us all about this exciting start that Manchester City have found themselves getting off to. 6 goals to the good, none allowed. Erling Haaland is scoring for fun, but the whole entire team looks like they're scoring for fun. Larry, there were some questions about how Erling Haaland would integrate into the team and how Pep Guardiola could integrate Erling Haaland. Based on what I've seen early, that was much ado about nothing.
You know what? He's one of those players. I mean, I would agree they look really well as a team. He is one of those players, though, that we don't really know how he's going to react when he doesn't score as much as he's used to. And I'm a little bit of a little afraid of that, just because him being so young. Not that I think he's can't control his emotions overall, but I'm a little worried about that because he's not going to be putting up the numbers that he has before. At least I don't believe so, just because it's going to be spread out. I mean, he's going to be should be the leading goal scorer of the team, and we'll have plenty of them. But I don't think he's going to be having his 85 out of 86 games, and so I'm interested and a little worried to see how that goes. But he seems to be fitting in really well. I've been excited the way it started.
So I watched part of the highlights. I saw Kevin De Bruyne's goal, and then that I don't even know what to call it that Phil Foden did, but it was just a work of attacking art by them. I guess the big question though is, in its early doors, I understand that, we've got we've still got to go through the Champions League draw. There's going to be injuries, things are going to change. But there's a part that says gather the rosebuds while you may. Like, it's much better to be off to a good start than a bad one. How much of this looks like the full fruition of the Pep Guardiola team? He's got him playing the way that he wants to. He's got the guys that he wants in the lineup. Is this finally the year that they can take that step and crown themselves rightful champions?
I could have said that the last 4 years. I know they were playing with the false nine, and they never really had that out and out striker since Aguero's been on his way out. But again, it's like with any of the top teams. The major players got to stay healthy. Are they in good position? Absolutely. I've said that the last couple of years. We all know how hard that Champions League is to win. Aside from Real Madrid, they seem to know how to do it pretty well. But it's just things have to fall the right way. But again, I'm happy they're off to the start that they are. Again, it's better than having to start playing catch up. But it's 2 games in. There's so much to play. It's like you can't even look at the overall yet.
So a bit of an interesting, weird thing that's going on coming up soon. You guys have a tie against Newcastle on Sunday, and then there's this weird charity match thing against Barcelona going on Wednesday the 24th. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, I can't even give you any details on that. All I know is if there's any first team players out there for really anything, I will be upset about it, because those are the stupid games that mean nothing, that someone's going to get hurt. And I don't get it. Didn't Liverpool still have a friendly after the season started, the game after? And again,
I think they may have had a friendly after the
right after the Community Shield.
Yeah.
I think it was against AC Milan or something like that.
Yeah. But this one, it seems very odd to me that we could be so far into the season and it's not a friendly. They brand it as a charity match. On the one hand, you're like, yeah, you know what? Nobody's really going to play that, and this could be a good opportunity to raise money for whatever cause they're dedicating it to.
They're probably just raising it for Barcelona.
Yes, I was actually thinking the words out of my mouth.
I was gonna turn attention to that after we gave you a chance to talk about City and the fact that all of this stuff with Barcelona registering these players and all of that, and then they go out and they managed a rather limp 0-0 draw against Rayo Vallecano, who aren't bad, but
not how you want to start with that team.
Not how you want to start with that team having mortgaged that future. And you're right, they could be raising money. This could be the type of thing that they're doing just to get that money in. I was more going to make the point, it's kind of hard to tell guys, the team's going to the Camp Nou, and we know that you really want to play against Barcelona. But what we're going to need you to do is not, because for some strange reason, we scheduled this game after the season started, and after we have a trip to Newcastle the Sunday before.
I think it's going to really. I think these guys know, especially the ones that have been playing in England for a couple years. They know how hard that schedule is. Where they know that this game essentially is a charity friendly, and I don't think you're going to see any of the, and you shouldn't for either teams, but I think they also kind of know, yeah, it's a great experience to be playing, to be playing there. But at the same time, it's for nothing, and if the season hadn't started yet and they were still using it as a warm-up game, I'd have a different opinion on it. But I can't see any of them, and they shouldn't. I mean, shame on either team if they have first teamers out there for any of it or an extended period of time.
All right. So as I teased, we have the Battle of the Arab States on Sunday or on Saturday at I was right. Sunday at 11:30. The Battle of the Arab States. The Saudis versus the Emirates.
That's actually an interesting game, though. I mean, it'll be curious to see what does Newcastle look like right now. I think that the way they had the second half of their season to get up to 11th, I believe, and they are off to a pretty decent start this season. It would be interesting to see how they match up and if they're able to keep this to a respectable, draw, something like that. That would be huge for Newcastle, I think.
I think
it's
Newcastle as being the best outside of the top. Will they take a couple points maybe from the top six or big six?
Mm-hmm.
I think so, but I still think look at the players that they have. They're much better than they were, but
they still got a ways to go. Absolutely.
They still got a ways to go, but they're moving in the right direction. And how can you not with that money? But I still see them as maybe 8th this year, maybe 7th, 9th. It really depends on what United ends up doing. And so
20th, baby. We're going for 20th. Manchester
How long?
United.
I'm gonna watch the show tomorrow. I want to hear all
about
the United stuff.
I didn't actually spend a lot of time talking to them because I refuse to devote as much time on my show to devote to talking about a team that cares so little about playing. That, and I had planned on having Uncle Leo on to talk about the Glazers, so that was going to be my nod to United. But what's to talk about, Larry? On the one side, on the blue half of Manchester, you have a team that's playing, that has done everything correctly. They bought smart. They brought in the right manager. They've installed a system. They get the right players. Not always the most expensive or the biggest names, but they recruit well and they're organized and everything runs. And as a result, you have an extremely successful team. On the red half, it's basically a bunch of chickens running around with their heads cut off, and you look at all the money that they've spent over the last 10 years, and how many of those transfers could even be called anywhere close to good, and the list is small. And as a result, they find themselves right now sitting in 20th place. Now, I could deal with a United that had lost their 2 opening games if they were tough fixtures, and had lost a couple of tough ones to start the season, right? I could deal with that. That would have been fine. But it's how limp both of these performances have been that's been problematic. It hasn't been that they've lost the games. It's that they have looked outplayed, outclassed, outdesired. It's a team that, and I did say to Stead at the top of this, if we changed out the patch and the names on the back of the jerseys and you just went out and watched them as you would any other team that played in the Premier League, what you'd think you were looking at was a Norwich or a Fulham or a team that you would say, oh, they look like they are going to get relegated this year. The only thing that keeps us from being honest and saying they are playing currently like a team that would be favorites to be relegated is the fact that it's Manchester United, is the fact that we're not talking about a bunch of guys that were playing last year in pub leagues. We're talking about the likes of Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho and Lisandro Martinez, people who are or have designs on being internationals potentially playing in the World Cup. But based on their actual performance, it looks like a team that would be candidates for relegation. So that's why, and I just don't think that they have the heart or the ability to do any better. You know, it's like when you have that.
I haven't given Ten Hag that much time yet, though. You know what I mean? Again, he's a whole new system. I mean,
But they're not
for it, but it's just,
I don't think it's Ten Hag's fault.
right.
I look at Ten Hag, and Ten Hag to me looks like that that new teacher who's come in for the first day, and they're trying everything that they have in their power to do it, and the kids just are like, not going to do it. Not going to do it.
It's going to be one of those movies, man. He's going to, the teacher comes in, he's getting stuff thrown at him. He gives up. Then he comes back and he touches that one player that turns it all around.
Dangerous Minds. How many times have we seen that movie?
You know what? What's more likely though?
High School High.
High School High, where he ends up just quitting because he's like this.
Yeah. There's no help in these people.
There's no help in these people. I'm getting out while my reputation is still good. I'm going to go, like, what do you believe? What do you think the chances are, like a job in Anderlecht or someplace? Or, you don't
think there's any way that he doesn't make it through the season, right? Like, he's making it through no matter what, right?
I do think there is a chance that he doesn't make it through the season.
Really?
Because remember, it's easier to fire a manager than it is to fire a team. And so if we stay in this situation and it gets like it likely could to October and they're 0 for the century and it's 6-7 on the trot and the goal difference is climbed into the double digits and they're still teetering on the relegation zone, I think that there are conversations about, hey, we can't fire all the players, so all we can do is get rid of the manager. Now, again, you're asking me if I think that's a possibility. I'm answering yes, I do. Do I think that would be the right decision? Absolutely, 100% no.
Right.
Because in this case, I don't think the players are the issue. I don't think the manager is the issue. I think the players and the environment around the club is the issue. I think something has to change around the club. You need to get rid of some personalities. You need to maybe have some new ownership. There needs to be a change in the energy at that club right now. And because that energy is just so toxic that it's basically breeding failure.
I don't know what it's going to take to turn them around right now. They're just confusing.
Well, give me a witch doctor, one short priest and one tall priest. Turn around 3 times, throw the salt over your shoulder and spit. If your witch doctor is Nigerian, maybe we need to get a Senegalese witch doctor in there. I definitely believe, we need an imam, we need a fat rabbi and a skinny rabbi, just get, all of that sort of stuff.
Hey, Stead, I hope we did not sound like this last year. I hope we were about to.
Well, earlier we actually talked about this and how we were discussing the issues that Arsenal were having at the beginning of the year, and Mike pointed out that the difference is that Arsenal is still on an upward trajectory where he doesn't see the same thing for United. And I just said, the thing that we talked about last year was we still had our Bukayo Saka and ESR. Who were those 2 youth players in Manchester United? And Mike was like, I don't know. So I think that's the big difference between last year and this year. Also, don't forget we had to play like Liverpool and City to start the season, where they played Brentford and Brighton. So
yeah, it was a totally different atmosphere last year with Arsenal.
Yeah,
totally different.
Man U's Man U, and to have a third coach now in 2 years, you got to have some kind of continuity. I'm sorry, he's going to be around for a couple of years. He's proven himself in Ajax. They have the players now. Get rid of some like the cancers, like the Cristiano Ronaldos. I don't give a fuck if I'm sorry. I don't care if he's number 1 or number 2 in the world right now. If he is a cancer and taking away talent and and motivation, all that stuff from his players, get rid of him. If he wants to get out of there, get rid of him. Get that money for him. Then you start kind of building that youth again. So yeah, you guys are kind of on the way down, but you guys won't be relegated by any means. Are you kidding me? That's the dumbest thing I've ever. You honestly think that Man U will be 18, 19, or 20th?
I think that there is a legitimate chance, honestly, that if they continue to play the way that they are,
even if they get about like 70% studs for the whole team, they still will be up. They'll be even better than Norwich. They'll be better than Fulham. They'll be better than all the crap teams. Like, it's Man U. There is no way. There's no way. I will eat whatever. There's no way.
Again, the other.
Wait, hold on, baby. I'll be right there. Wait, sorry. What?
Yeah. The point is, though, like, we've said that twice about Newcastle. Oh, there's no way they could go down. We've said that about Everton, and they almost did go down. Oh, there's no way a team as big as wealthy as Manchester United could ever go down because they have the money.
You're missing the one.
But what good is money if you don't spend it right?
It's the soccer gods. The soccer gods have proven through over the friggin' decades. It's not going to happen. You have 36 more games, and you're still playing Fulham. You're playing these God. Breathe, young sir. Breathe. You guys.
You still got 15 days of the transfer window left.
We still got 15
window in the winter time. You guys are fine. Relax. You guys are good.
I do believe though that look,
but it is fun on this side, though. I'll tell you that much. It is fun on this side. The last couple of years.
Oh, it's a lot.
It
is a lot. But it is a lot better to be on that side than it is on this side. Right. But yeah, I will make the point though. We started to touch about this, and we brought it up ever so briefly. It was the first game of the La Liga season last week, and the whole news with Real Madrid do what Real Madrid do. They went down to Almeria. They went down in the 6th minute, and Real Madrid. They came back. This type of calm, composed performance that we would expect out of them. And they just continue to do what they do best. As for Barcelona, when you look at the lineup that they started, with the likes of Lewandowski up front with Ousmane Dembele and Rafinha, their new signings, just new signing after new signing after new signing, all over the place, and they failed to be able to get anything from that.
They're not even
that's just chemistry. That's just time.
Right now. There's some kind of like weird thing going on in La Liga with that they're not registered or something kind of weird.
Well, they were not registered until 4 hours before the game. I do agree that it is chemistry. It is interesting though with Xavi and the fact that they've had all of this time in practice that they are not a little bit. But you also have a lot of players that have been brought into the system who are being asked to play in a manner under Xavi that they have never been asked to play in before. It speaks to kind of one of the biggest failings that I think that we haven't touched enough on, which is the failure of Barcelona and La Masia to produce quality players at the rate that they were doing previously. When you look at the strength of what that Spain team that won the back-to-back Euros and sandwiched around the World Cup, so much of that was based on homegrown talent that had been brought up through La Masia. And, that was the Gerard Piqués, that was the Jordi Albas, that was the Cesc Fabregas. Not all of them stayed, some of them left, but they all got brought up through that system. And they just have not invested in it. And as a result, they too are in a similar situation, you could say, to where Man United is, where it's just bad spending, bad decision making, and now you have this. They took a different path, though, than United did in their recruitment this year, which was to basically mortgage the future, selling off rights, future TV rights, and future merchandising rights for immediate cash, on the assumption that they will make so much more over that point in time that what they gave up will be a drop in the bucket. Larry, I want to get your thoughts on what you thought this approach by Barcelona was to sign these players, what they're doing. You're the guy who owns his own business. How risky is this as a businessman?
It was one of those things where I kept reading stuff and seeing all these names that they were going after, all the stuff with Chelsea going back and all the players just stealing them left and right. And it was one of those things where they just kept thinking, we'll be fine. We'll figure it out. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out. And they got to the point where they're like, oh crap, like we can't figure this out unless we said like, we need to mortgage the future and hope that this works out. And it's a poor business model. It really goes to show all of us that there is so much financial stuff going on behind the scenes with these mega corporations and mega groups that we don't even understand it, but it's just, that's those people that are there. I guess they're thinking like, if this doesn't work, I'll get fired. Oh, well, I'll get fired. You know what I mean? Like, what's the, I mean, maybe something worse is going to happen to him. I don't know.
And I work for Barcelona, so I'll get hired somewhere else. So who cares?
Well, I mean, not only that, but it's like, what's the worst that's going to happen to the current regime is that there'll be a recall vote and they'll be voted out. Now, for
if they're breaking rules and all that stuff, that's a completely separate conversation. But if they're following rules and just really hurting themselves for future, banking everything on this year, that's a scary game to play. And it just shows you that didn't happen overnight. That was something that throughout the years, like you said, just poor financial decisions, whether it be with transfers, with contracts, with TV, with merchandise, with whatever exposure they have. It's just been a snowball effect that they just, at one point, they just needed to say like, all right, we need to clear the books and start fresh. We are Barcelona. People will come here. And they just refused to take care of the problem whenever it was smaller, however many years ago it was. And it's just snowballed.
Paying Messi 160 million euros a year didn't help either.
But also, if they're not going deep in these tournaments, they're not getting that extra money, and they're still spending, money going in.
I think the Messi contract was just absolutely awful. That was a horrible contract. That contract actually is from an annual basis, that is 3 to 4 times higher than the second largest contract on an annual basis. Nobody came even close to getting that sort of a contract. Not even like 160 million euros is like a lifetime, or that's a 4 or 5 year deal. That's not a 1 year deal. And they were paying him that for multiple years. No matter what type of club you are, that is going to be crippling.
Yeah,
you paid him business. 500 million euros for a span of 4 years. Yeah, that's very, very bad. This is bad business, and it was completely unnecessary. They didn't have to give him that contract.
No.
And we all saw, like with so many corporations, the house of cards, financial house of cards that everything was built on when COVID hit. And you lost all of that revenue from being able to have fans in the stadium, right? So much of what Barcelona was able to do when they were able to maintain any sort of finances was based on the fact that, you have a 90,000 seat mecca of an arena that people will pay top dollar.
Almost 100,000 seats.
Yeah.
Selling out every game.
Selling out every game.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And when and people will pay dearly to get into, and when that was removed for the better part of a year and a half, where were you getting money? And it was clear.
And instead of going into a shell and protecting it, they were like, we'll be all right. Let's just keep going.
We'll figure it out
later. And it's not only that they're continuing to press forward with these plans to redevelop it. We already saw that, Real Madrid did the same thing with the Bernabeu. A lot of that work is done to the point where Real Madrid are at least able to go back in and play at the Bernabeu instead of how they were during COVID playing at their training grounds. Barcelona is going to do the same thing with the Camp Nou, so that's a serious chunk. We're talking hundreds of millions of euros that are being spent on that redevelopment project. Selling off the future rights, Larry, I agree with you. I think Laporte is basically thinking, what's the worst that could happen if this goes belly up? They're going to vote in somebody else to take care of it, and it's going to be their problem, not mine.
It's just strictly, this is such like a perfect example of their egos have just taken over the business. We can't be behind Madrid for more than a year. So whatever it takes, we got to get back up. We have to be winning this league. And I understand you win money when you get deep in the tournaments and you're winning La Liga. But their ego has just, they've got poor financial decision makers that are just continuing to do it. And it's going to take a lot for them to get out of it. Like it's, if you can't register people till 4 hours before the game, like, you clearly have done many things wrong.
And it brings up the interesting situation, I guess, insofar as we can look at it like this. I just went on my rant about Manchester United and talked about how poorly they were. She's tried to talk me down off the ledge. And we just spent a good 10, 15 minutes instead talking about where we see Barcelona. Which situation do you think is worse right now?
Barcelona.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's not even close. I mean, I listen to a lot of stuff. I'm in a truck a lot during the day, so I just listen to a lot of different shows and podcasts. And to hear the different scenarios that are possible for Barcelona moving forward, there's no way one would not be nervous. Now, are they likely to happen? Well, probably not. But you're looking at a scenario where if this type of business practice continues, they're going to be faced with bankruptcy. And they are, I mean, Larry, I couldn't agree more. They have this total irrational fear of falling behind Real Madrid that they are literally paying with money they do not have. They are selling assets with the hope that the people who are purchasing those assets will somehow reinvest into the club when there's no guarantee that's going to happen. There's no guarantee that's going to happen. Why would you want to invest anyway? Exactly. Why would you want to do that? And when you're in a situation where you're renting out your club level for weddings, it's like that. That's
okay.
I know private schools that don't stoop that low. So all I'm saying,
but that's not an uncommon practice. I
understand that.
Where I understand Manchester United and everybody does that.
I understand that, but when you're using that as a tool to keep your business afloat, as opposed to doing it as a way for community relations, that's when it's different. And it's going to continue to become a problem until they actually figure out a way to bring up young players and not need to do these fire sale buys like they did this year. I mean, I can't go a day without looking at Reddit, without looking at Twitter, without seeing somebody pose the question, how are they spending this money? It's being asked over and over and over again. And it's not being asked by four guys who have totally different careers that are completely outside the world of football. These are football people asking these questions. How are you paying for these players? Are the assets you're selling, are you truly getting the income that you claim you are getting for these assets? Because again, you don't have to show this type of income until you get to the end of the year when you can have to show your books to prove that you're within the financial fair play, which we all know means nothing. But I would not put man. I would take, if I had to pick, I would pick Man U over, because Mike, your assessment was right from the standpoint that they have some level of pieces in place, but again, you have to change the players. They can still change the players. They can do that. Barcelona they're just changing everything, and there's without the, yes, they're still going to make money. They're Barcelona. The money's still going to come in, but I just feel like they've mortgaged the future. I feel like the decisions that they made 10 years ago are the reasons why they're struggling the way they are right now. But the funny thing is everyone knows that it's the decisions you made 10 years ago are causing these problems now. Yet it's almost like the current Barcelona board is just covering their eyes.
Yeah.
They're ignoring the poor financial plan they made 10 years ago to keep up with Real Madrid because they won the double last year. So I find the whole thing really, really scary. And I'm probably wrong to some level, but I find the whole thing really scary.
I think the thing that's even more scary is not if you're wrong. It's if they're right. if
Mhm.
this works, if the 75, $80 million in revenue that they borrowed against future sales of TV rights, prize money, and things works out for them.
They're still $1 billion in debt. Or
Yeah,
euros, excuse me.
But not
Like,
only is
billion
I'm
euros
not
in debt.
worried about them. I think that if they're right and it does work out this time and they're able to do what they said and said, okay, we can pay back this and still show a profit because the money that we anticipate making in new television revenue and merchandising revenue will far outpace what we're borrowing against today. Fine. The problem that I have, what worries me more, is that some other team is going to see this and they are not going to be as lucky. COVID's going to hit, and we're going to have a team that should not go bankrupt actually do and cease to exist.
Yeah, but Barcelona's also hoping that they're going to get a lot of new Barcelona fans.
Well, that's what they're hoping on. That's what they're betting on, and that's why they're saying,
This isn't 20 years ago, man. It is so easy to be a fan of a different club now. It's so easy.
That's why I said that I think it is risky,
Yeah.
and I agree with you. I agree with all of you. I think that we all, I really don't think there are many people outside of Barcelona who don't feel like this is a very, very, very risky proposition. I just wanted to bring up, if this works and other teams do this, we are going to have clubs that cease to exist.
Yeah, agreed.
If it does work, I think everybody in Barcelona's top office will be celebrating, thinking, "I cannot believe that this just." They will be, they will be cheering each other and going crazy, thinking,
yeah, we're throwing darts at a dartboard, hoping this would work. That would
Look,
work.
I'm new to the world of investing, but I'm jumping in whole hog, and I am scratching my head at this, going, "Wow, this is insane." I find it fascinating, but trying to be like you, Larry. I'm trying to get my own business going.
Yeah, there you go. To answer your question, Mike, Man U is a nasty surface problem right now.
Mhm.
Barcelona is a core problem that has just festered.
That foundation is starting to crumble, which is scary.
G, you get the last word on this one.
I agree. No, Real Madrid right now is just laughing, just smoking the cigars because they're in such a financial better place. But yeah, they kind of dipped it as well. But Barcelona, like I said earlier, how many years ahead are they? Keep on selling stuff to the point that they're going to be so behind that the way they're going, they might be bankrupt. Getting Lewandowski, and that's all and great, but again, he's going to cost a pretty penny. He's not going to stay forever. But then again, who is backing him up? Who are the young bloods? We really don't see that. So it's going to be interesting to see what Barcelona does over the years, and even if they stay top 4 in their even league, then right there, you're talking about getting more fans. Well, if you're not top 4, not top 5, you're not going to these tournaments. It's going to be a slippery slope backwards. Now, I don't think they're going to drop very far. They're not as bad. Like Man U, you guys are freaking out. I would freak out if I was Barcelona fans too. Maybe, like you said, hopefully that one dart on that dartboard sticking that right kind of decision making, and they pull a rabbit out of their ass, and they're financially better. But $1 billion is still $1 billion. They still have to pay people on top of that owing $1 billion. So God only knows what they're getting this money. So definitely get your popcorn ready.
All right, gentlemen. It's been fun, but it's time to say our fond farewells. I would like to thank Los and Chelsea Mike for coming on earlier in the show and discussing the Chelsea Spurs game. Celtic Cam for coming on and telling us all about the happenings in the land of enchantment. Bayern Rob, of course, for telling us all about the Bundesliga. And then we wrapped up with Larry, the insurance guy, telling us all about Man City, and G joining us to talk a little bit about to get his plug in for Arsenal, try and talk me off the ledge about Manchester City, and a great discussion about our feelings about the situation at Barcelona. Gentlemen, it's been a lot of fun, and of course, a big shout out to producer Stead for making sure that everything runs on time as always. So for Los and Chelsea Mike, Celtic Cam, Bayern Rob, Larry the insurance guy, Coach G, and producer Stead, I'm Mike. It's been fun. We did all right this week. We'll try and do better next week.